A warm welcome to all the participants. On behalf of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, I, Ms. Prajakta Kavekar, Assistant Professor at GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, welcomes you all for this virtual webinar. Goa Vidya Prasarak Mandal, popularly known as GVM, was founded by visionaries Dr. Dada Vaidya, Shri Sitaram Kedkar and Shri Vinayak Sir Jyotishi on October 2, 1911. The intention of the founders was not merely to impart formal education for white-collar jobs, but to provide for the future generation Goans who would be proud of our rich and varied cultural heritage and who would, with confidence, shoulder responsibilities in the task of nation building. GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education was founded and was established in 1993 in response to the growing demand for teacher education. The college is affiliated to Goa University and recognized by NCTE. The institution offers B.Ed, M.Ed, Ph.D. in education and diploma in pre-primary teacher training. Since January 2021, our college, under the guidance of our principal Dr. Georgian Matthew, we have conducted web talk series for students, research scholars, in-service teachers, and it has been addressed by renowned professors, research scholars, and teachers. Today we have amongst us a very renowned personality and professor who will be talking on emerging pedagogical parameters. Dr. Louis Vernal, ex-principal of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education and ex-dean faculty of education, Goa University. Before the talk begins, let me invite our principal, Dr. Georgian Matthew, to welcome the gathering officially.
Good afternoon. And ready? Yeah. GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education is a unique institution. We have courses ranging from pre-primary to PhD in education. We have a master's in education. We have a research center, and there is not even University of Goa has got a master's degree in education. And we organize research seminars, edu-talk regularly every month. And I am very happy today that we are going to have one more research talk today or edu-talk today by our ex-principal, Dr. Louis Vernal. Now, if I go to a tailor and ask the tailor to stitch a shirt for me, and suppose he stitches it, with the same fashion of maybe around 10 years ago what he used to do, I would not accept it. Now, I just heard a story like this, that one teacher used to come to the classroom with the lecture notes, very old, and it was looking shabby. So one of the students got up and said, "Sir, why not you make a photocopy and bring at least?" See, new policy has come, and we know that the structure is going to change, and there are so many new things are coming up. So as teacher educators and teachers, we need to update ourselves. And today we are privileged to have Dr. Louis Vernal, ex-dean and ex-principal of our college, ex-dean faculty of education, Goa University, and ex-principal of our college as our resource person. Now, I posted this to different groups, and one of the professors was asking me, is Vernal sir is still active? So I just replied that yes, sir is still active. And when I told him that,
hello. Hello. Am I audible?
Sir, I will hold this.
Yes, yes.
Ready?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Okay, it is my privilege to introduce our speaker, Dr. Louis Vernal. Already he has been introduced by our anchor and our principal. He needs no introduction. But formality requires that he should be introduced in an official program like this. He built this institution as principal of this college for the first crucial 18 years. This college is constantly growing up on the foundation he laid as principal for that duration. We are fortunate enough, sir, you getting as principal of this college, as he was efficient as an administrator and as an academician. He provided his expertise to the whole state of Goa as Dean of the Faculty of Education of Goa University and also Chairman of Board of Studies in Education. He also represented Goa in NCTE. Thus, from his leadership, entire state of Goa, including all our teacher education institutions, got a lot of benefit. From academic side, he keeps interest in teacher educations, higher educations and general pedagogy. After retirement from his active service, he still keeps himself engaged in academic activities and is eager to share his expertise. Today he is here with us again to share his ideas on emerging pedagogical parameters in the field of teaching, learning and assessment. Welcome, sir, once again, and we are eagerly waiting you to listen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Warm wishes to all of you who have joined this seminar or workshop or webinar, whatever it is. And I am happy to talk to you all. With the passage of time, we learn, what we learn, and how we learn change. I remember when I was a student from our education psychology book, I think it was that classic book, James Ross, The Foundations of Education Psychology. There used to be a very interesting phrase or a sentence. I teach John Latin. That was the classical explanation of what a pedagogy was 70, 80, 100 years ago. So the teacher knew many things, and the teacher wanted to teach a subject to a student. Obviously, things have changed now, and I would like to dwell on some of the factors that we should keep in mind if we want to be relevant to the times we live in. In any education policy, besides the development of intellectual faculties, there should be scope for other areas of human development, such as fine and performing arts, sports, music, etc. Those students with high level of ability in these skills should have the scope for development of their full potential. Academic subjects are generally the focal point areas of curriculum. However, it ought to be diversified gradually to offer scope for the development of talent in areas as outlined in multiple intelligences and abilities of man. These should also form part of the scheme assessment, and certification. We are all familiar with the multiple intelligence theory as propounded by Howard Gardner, which reinforces the fundamental belief in individual differences and the need for pedagogy to adapt itself to these differences. Gardner describes 8 distinct intelligences which are relatively independent of one another and that are based on skills and abilities which are valued within different cultures. This received strong positive response from educators who readily adapted his work to applied settings in the classroom. Individual differences in intelligence can be described by abilities and skills in linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical performance or composition, spatial ability to evaluate the visual world, kinesthetic, interpersonal, and intrapersonal. Louis Thurston had also proposed a similar view of intelligence by focusing on 7 different primary mental abilities: verbal comprehension, reasoning, perceptual speed, numerical ability, word fluency, associative memory, spatial visualization. This new philosophical approach is augmented by the best that is available in developmental psychology through the works of Jean-Paul Piaget, Lev Vygotsky, Sigmund Freud, Erik Erikson, Abraham Maslow, among others. I'm sure most of you are aware of all these names. Understanding intelligence through the theories of Alfred Binet, the IQ, the mental abilities of Louis L. Thurston and Joy Paul Guilford, multiple intelligences of Howard Gardner, and emotional intelligence of Daniel Goleman. The studies into personality initiated by Hippocrates and Galen long time ago in Greece, to those of Gordon Allport, Raymond Cattell, Louis R. Goldberg, and William McDougall, further deepen our understanding of the child, his interests and motivation. Then there is the psychoanalytic interpretation of Sigmund Freud, Carl Gustav Jung, Alfred Adler, Erich Fromm. We focus now on the major learning theories. Behaviorism, Ivan Pavlov, John Watson, Edward Lee Thorndike, Max Wertheimer, Wolfgang Kohler, B.F. Skinner. Cognitivism, David Ausubel, Jerome Bruner, Robert Gagne. And constructivism. I am not saying something new. These are all names and theories which are familiar to any student of education. Focusing on constructivism, it started with the 18th century philosopher Giambattista Vico, who maintained that humans can understand only what they have themselves constructed. Constructivism stresses the importance of the learner in his efforts at interpreting external ideas and experiences in the correlation of ideas and the link to pre-existing knowledge. The first major contemporaries to develop a clear idea of constructivism were Jean Piaget. As I said, that the basis of learning is discovery. To understand this, to understand is to discover or reconstruct by rediscovery. John Dewey, he believed that knowledge emerges only from meaningful experiences. Students must be engaged in meaningful activities that induce them to apply the concepts they are trying to learn. Jerome Bruner stated that learning is the social process whereby students construct new concepts based on the current knowledge. They select information, construct hypotheses, and make decisions with the aim of integrating new experiences into their existing mental constructs. Learning is an active process in which learners construct new ideas or concepts based upon their current or past knowledge. Lev Vygotsky, for him, constructivism is a dialectical process where the child learns through shared problem-solving experience with someone else like parents, teachers, siblings, or peers. Therefore, learning is a natural process through a rich and stimulating environment. Learners construct new ideas based on prior knowledge and accommodation to new experiences. There is thrill when students take great responsibility for their own learning and construct their own knowledge. And seniors play a significant role. Differentiating pedagogies accept students with their individual differences and weave in multiple intelligences and abilities, as also divergence in thinking and learning, teaching and learning styles, and varied forms of assessment. Many aspects of educational psychology can be linked with the effective application of technology in education. Education is aimed at modification of behavior towards desired goals, resulting in growth through learning, which is a complex process having developmental and pedagogical dimensions, heredity and environment. Heredity brings into focus individual differences that exist in human beings. This is fundamental to our efforts to provide a proper environment to learning according to one's abilities. In this striving towards individualized education, technology plays a key role. Technology in education cannot be viewed merely as an extrinsic tool to augment the teaching learning process. It is more intrinsic to the core of education, bringing in a new philosophy of pedagogy. Education 3.0 has evolved from its earlier versions that followed traditional transaction and assessment strategies in a rather inflexible curriculum. Education 1.0 is mainly a one-way process, attending classes where professors supply them with information, class notes, handouts, textbooks, teaching aids, including slides and videos. Education 2.0 uses technologies of Web 2.0, blogs, podcasts, social bookmarking, and related participation technologies to create more interactive education, but largely within the constraints of Education 1.0. Education 3.0 departs from regimentation to create a much more free and flexible system that turns students from being mere consumers to producers of knowledge. There is a breakdown of barriers and boundaries. Education 3.0 emphasizes that each student should have equity of access and the ability to find, select, structure, and evaluate information. While learning is for all, each student learns differently and responds in varying ways to the capacity for problem solving, creative and critical thinking, for collaboration, communication, and negotiation, as also to be an independent, lifelong learner adaptable to change. In a large and heterogeneous country like ours, there are currently three scenarios. An integrated education would apply probably to a small percentage of educational institutions. In the majority of institutions, there would be varied levels of blended learning. The bottom rungs would still be teacher-dominated, text-oriented, and examination-based. No one should be pushed beyond a point, keeping in mind the available resources, quality of teachers, infrastructural facilities, internet access, and other such factors. However, in our effort towards digital India, there has to be a quantum change towards digital content, techno-pedagogy, and new modes of assessment. The pace of change has to be accelerated within the existing constraints. Decentralization would facilitate this change. Technology can be used to individualize instruction and provide a range of learning experiences, from remediation to enrichment. Integrating technology into learning uses web-based digital content and repositories, apps, and every emerging technological tool to customize education to individual abilities, backgrounds, and skills so as to enable them to learn efficiently. They acquire various skills that ensure a smooth transition into the world of work. Technology changes the learning context from teacher-directed to learner-centered activities and a more collaborative school culture. Learners can develop meaningful knowledge through their interactions with each other and experimentation with their learning environment. Teachers must know their students well and employ a greater range of teaching styles and strategies to ensure that each student's personal learning needs are met to his or her ability. Learners start from different places and follow different routes towards divergent learning outcomes. There is no one right way to learn, no one mold that fits all. Learners can try many different routes before they achieve their learning outcomes. Classroom planning begins with stating objectives for translating the convergence provided by the curriculum and syllabus into diversifying learning opportunities, assignments with multiple levels of achievement that challenge the capabilities of students in line with their abilities. These levels facilitate progression from one level to a higher one. While the demands of a prescribed curriculum have to be achieved, those who have innate capabilities at higher end of the spectrum can undertake multiple assignments that develop higher thinking processes of creativity, problem solving, critical thinking, and innovation that increase their productive levels. Those with capabilities at the middle or lower levels can proceed at their own pace. It is essential that schools believe in positive discrimination of students based on their innate abilities and potentialities. Nature and nurture should go hand in hand in any educational activity. Technology is a great tool for diversified learning, for learning to take place inside and outside traditional classroom settings. Learning flourishes in new relationships within a network of the home, educational and societal institutions, giving new insights and greater independence as learners. Learning has to be relevant to context and linked to problems in the environment. It must connect with life and living, identifying and solving real-life issues and problems. Learning must be linked to opportunity creation. There would be progression from specific periods of regulated learning to lifelong learning with greater independence as learners. The internet provides tools for learning. It is a vast storehouse of knowledge with the best available digital content and remote experts. Globalization lays emphasis on technology, demographic change, lifelong and open system of learning leading to a learning society where there is endless demand for new forms of learning. This calls for thinking beyond our traditional infrastructure of schools and universities. Further, integration of technology results in a new learning society which engenders a culture of learning throughout life, aims to develop motivated, engaged learners who are prepared to conquer the unforeseen challenges of tomorrow as well as those of today. Takes learning to the learner, seeing learning as an activity, not a place. Believes that learning is for all, that no one should be excluded. Recognizes that people learn differently and strives to meet those needs. Cultivates and embraces new learning providers from the public, private, and NGO sectors. Develops new relationships and new networks between learners, providers, funders, and innovators. Provides the universal infrastructure they need to succeed, still physical, but increasingly virtual. Supports a system of continuous innovation and feedback to develop knowledge of what works in which circumstances. Education systems will have a role to play, but only if they are radically reformed in ways that enable them to interact with and shape the learning society that surrounds them and through new ways of organizing learning. Technology is changing where and when learning takes place and also how it is supported and funded. New groups can form around learner interest or educational philosophy rather than proximity, location, or age. New pedagogy, by removing learning from the traditional classrooms and school contexts, new models that use technology increasingly focus on participation and negotiation rather than direction and instruction. Students often act as mentors, providing support to other students and to teachers, giving them new insights into the education system and greater independence as learners. New relationships. Connectivity is supporting new learner-mentor relationships beyond the classroom or school walls. Education is no longer the sole responsibility of teachers and parents, but of learners and a wider distributed network of support. It has encouraged the formation of new communities of practice, fostered greater awareness and tolerance of diversity and multiple perspectives, and engendered a growing sense of citizenship on a global scale. A more sophisticated integrated learning mix, technology allows access to the learning that takes place outside traditional classroom setting, whether at home, within local communities, or within global community. Learning can be formal or informal, reflecting either a standard curricula or learning that is initiated by the interests and enthusiasms of learners themselves. Richer assessments and evaluations, new forms of assessment, including development of e-portfolio simulations and formative assessment with immediate feedback, can make contribution to understanding each learner's development and understanding and future direction. Learners are being given more control over what is assessed and when and how the results are used. Data at all levels, breakthroughs in technology have allowed students to progress, to be carefully measured and analyzed to inform better decision by teachers and lecturers, parents, school and university leaders, and themselves. Innovate constantly and embrace new providers. Unconstrained by traditional boundaries, schools in challenging environments innovate constantly, drawing ideas in from all sides and rapidly selecting and deploying those that seem most effective. The social entrepreneurial sector is also a vital complement to public school systems, providing it with new ideas and challenge and supplementing its weakness. Separate learning from schooling. Education works best when it connects with and builds on other initiatives like community issues, healthcare. Learning links learning to opportunity creation like jobs and skills needed by the wider community. It takes learning to where students are. Pull learning rather than push teaching. Education has to be something that pulls people in, inspiring learners and connecting with the rest of their lives. But the best educators then provide skills and content through and around that. Authentic learning, relevant to context, keeping the attention of learners with relevant problems that make sense in their environment. Learners and parents as contributors, great teachers can help build motivation and commitment to learning. But in response to a positive of professional teachers, developing mentors and teachers becomes an essential part of sustainable system of education. Investing in innovation, a new way of thinking about investing in educational innovation. They divide the educational world into two axes: formal, informal education, and sustaining or disruptive education. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Prajakta?
We are now open for a question answer session. You can either ask your questions directly to the resource person, or you can post your questions in the comment section and we will pass it on to the resource person.
Okay.
Till then,
It's not only questions. If somebody wants to say something more or some clarifications, you can also do that.
we will also send a link of a feedback form in the comment section. As soon as you fill the feedback form, you will receive your certificates for the talk. We are waiting
Okay.
for your questions as well.
Okay, I will begin with one clarification, or it's not a question. I would like to thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation and many new terminologies like full learning than push teaching. See, one of the problems that the school teachers and even the parents face is that to motivate the learners. Even children, we have to tell them again and again that they have to study. So I like that terminology used, full learning rather than push teaching. So finally, I think it is important that we need to motivate the learners rather than push something. So I would like to I would like to request Vernal sir also to say a few things about how we motivate the students. Whatever technology that we use, whatever methodology that we use, unless the students are motivated to learn, we are not able to do anything much. So, sir, please, from your experience, you can share a few things with us, our teacher trainees and also teacher educators, that how we can, motivate the learners, like you said about pull learning rather than push teaching. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Jojan, Dr. Jojan. Some of this terminology which I have used are from companies which deal with internet and such tools like Intel, and particularly this terminology of pull and push is taken from from Cisco. I don't know if you are familiar with Cisco. Cisco is a very, very big company. Now, you asked about motivation. Motivation is a topic that has come with earlier pedagogies. When students were forced to learn, forced to sit in the classroom, and forced to listen to the teacher, and forced to learn what the teacher wanted to say. To sustain them, you needed motivational tactics, how to motivate them, use pictures, use this, use slides, you do that. But when learning is not oriented towards the teacher, the little that the teacher knows, towards the wider area which the student is interested, that itself is the motivation. When they find that what they are learning is related to their life, what they are learning is related to how to make their life better and how to use what they're learning for their future employment, there is no need of any extra motivation. Nowadays, we don't talk much about motivation. We only talk about the tactics that you employ in education, the pedagogies that you employ. You see how children are so attached to and so proficient in using the mobile, the laptop, and educational technology. You don't need to motivate them. See, the motivation, our old timers, in our time, we talked a lot about motivation. Many of you are very young people. You may not need to, but it's good to revise and see if some things are not going on properly, things are not taking the direction that you want, then you may need to motivate them to link their learning with their life, their health, their job, their future. These are all the motivating factors that help. And if the teacher focuses on the learner and not on himself or herself, then the need for motivation is very little. I mean, I believe that if it is the primary focus of learning is on the learner, and he learns according to his abilities and his, nature, the innate powers that he has, and the interests that he has. So we don't need to push them. They themselves will come forward to learn and hang around. Well, that's what I feel in the modern context when you talk about motivation. Okay? I link it with the past pedagogy. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for that insightful answer. Any other student or teacher would like to ask any questions or add something? You are welcome.
There are no questions or feedback, so we consider that you do not have any questions after the talk.
Yedu Prabha has sent something. She wants to say something. She sent some message. Yeah, you can just say you are saying something. Please share your opinion.
Yes, I had an appreciative response to sir's whole talk. The take on education where 1.0 to 2.0 to present take on education as 3.0, how he mentioned the changes that as education as a system has seen, and his way of putting it across to all of us was really interesting and relevant. We could take a lot of insight from the earlier practices that as teachers we have done, and also from our own student life we have seen. So it was really very nice. In terms of NEP 2020, I would want to know, is there any field which is still left, which is not included maybe in the syllabus or curriculum?
There is one more question about NEP. So I think sir would answer both the questions together. Yeah, NEP. One more question is there. NEP. I will just read out the question. Sir, what are your views about the new NEP 2020? There was one more question. So sir would say a few words about the NEP 2020 in relation to what he has said today. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, NEP 2020 is for you people. When we were students, we had Kothari Commission's report, and after that, we had various other developments, even the education policy 1996. Policies are not something so innovative. There is a link between one and the other. If you ask my opinion, I still think that 1966 education policy, which we normally call Kothari Commission, was actually the game changer. It brought a total revolution into the educational thinking and educational process. Many of the things are still being talked about now, even in Education 2020. I don't want to get into this thing. I do not consider myself to be an expert in the education policy of 2020. But what I feel that is, if any policy which is there, it has to focus on change. and focus on the learner and focus on new strategies and new methods of evaluation. I am sure Education 2020 has done it. And don't tell me that it is something out of the blue. It is something, my belief that it is a continuation of earlier policies. And what I learned earlier in my days, I find that many of them were useful. They are useful even today, provided you are willing to open your eyes and your mind to accept the new things. Say, for example, if you remember, our college was one of the first to start collaboration with Intel Corporation. Now, that was something which we took long time ago, trying to link education, particularly pedagogy, to principles and procedures that were used by these giants of technology. We learned a lot. And I'm sure that many of my colleagues who were there at that time, it was a very helpful input with them. Like that, Microsoft has come in areas. Now, these companies bring in innovation, not by the day, by the hour they bring in new things, and such type of things keep us always on the alert to do things new. So, when did we start Intel collaboration? Well, I retired in 2012. So it must have been 2002 or 2003. We started long time ago, almost 20 years ago, we started with this collaboration. So it all depends on what opportunities come your way and you do it. And I'm sure the new education policy will bring together all forces that are interested in educational upliftment of the people, the students, so that they can ultimately take their rightful place in the progress of society. Thank you.
In the group. Yeah. Good evening, sir. Sana Gavas has posted in the comments. Good evening, Vernal, sir. You were my principal when I did my B.Ed. Dr. Matthew, sir, my educator. Wonderful thought-provoking thoughts, Vernal, sir. Kindly elaborate more on nurture goes along with nature. Thank you.
Yes. When I did my B.Ed in 1974, well, it seems like I am pulling out some sheets from the archives. In 1974, when I did my B.Ed, one of the big chapters in our educational psychology was nurture and nature, which I put in my talk as heredity and environment. What we are born with, we cannot change. I mean, we are with those abilities. We are privileged to have those abilities. It is for the environment. That means it is for the school, for the community, for the teacher, for the parent to give me the atmosphere in which I can grow and grow to be to the fullness of my abilities. If you take a glass or a bucket or a barrel, all can be half full. No doubt that the barrel will contain more than the glass. But if a glass is full, it is full. Bucket is full. Barrel is full. That is the limits that we have. If somebody has got endowment by nature to the size of a glass, don't try to make him get into the bucket. He will drown there, and worse still, in a barrel. So that is what we call nature, what you are born with, your heredity. And an environment or nurture is how you help the student to grow so that he will bear fruits according to what nature has endowed him with. So this is a fundamental concept in educational psychology of nature and nurture, how you grow, make the flower grow. Flower remains. It can be a rose, it can be but then nature will help the flower to grow. It should help the flower to grow, not die. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Vernal sir, for answering all the difficult questions. I now request Ms.
They were not difficult questions. They were different questions. Okay, no doubt. Everything is welcome, and any opinion is valuable and contributes towards. The only thing is that as a teacher, we should allow students to express themselves, open themselves in their own way, not in one way, that my way or no way at all. That principle which was there earlier should go. And some of you must have heard that if you don't answer the question as I have given you, then there is no hope for you to pass the examination.
Thank you very much, sir. I now request Mrs. Hani Babu, Professor, GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, and Secretary, AIRO Goa Chapter, to propose the vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Respected dignitaries on the platform, staff, research scholars, and students. I take this opportunity to extend a note of acknowledgement to Dr. Louis Vernal, ex-principal of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education and ex-dean Faculty of Education, Goa University. So your lived experiences and the perspectives you shared were really informative. It really gave a call to the changes of existing practices, and it outlined why that shift is required. It was really reflective, and those words were really contributing to the current teaching community. This webinar was successfully organized through the guidance of Principal, GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, Dr. Jojan Matthew. Thank you, sir, for your unconditional support. This session was made live through presence of participants of academic interest, especially research scholars, staff members, and students. Thank you for being the part of this informative session. I also extend gratitude to all the staff and technical team members who joined hands in this venture. Once again, on behalf of GVM's Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education and AIRO Goa Chapter, I extend gratitude to everyone. Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Vernal sir, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
We would like you to have you on our campus one day.
Yes, hopefully when I can run faster than the COVID, I will reach there.
Yes. We are waiting for that.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
Requesting everyone to fill the feedback forms, and you all can leave now. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you.